Hi everyone, it's Dr. RAMANI here. Ever try to do a favor or give a narcissist a gift or pay the check? How did it work out for you? May not have been as smoothly as you think. Let's break that down. So the riddle of this video is, how do narcissistic folks cope with generosity? Again, the example would be, you roll up to a narcissistic person and you're very generous to them. And listen, you may have done this because you're a nice person and you're generous by nature. Could also be that you don't know what narcissism is. They're just a person in your life to you at this point. You're just being generous to them, right? It would be interesting for you to all drop in the comments how generosity to a narcissistic person has gone for you. Now, being generous towards a narcissistic person, it's tricky. It should be simple, but it's tricky. Now, if we think of this, in an early phase of an adult narcissistic relationship, you may have done it because you didn't know. Well, you might have done it even as a kid with a narcissistic parent. But down the line, you may be struck by how they react to your generosity. It is such a bizarre, multi-edged sword. Now, keep in mind, narcissistic people, especially grandiose and communal narcissists, can be performatively generous. They'll pick up the check when there's a big crowd or to impress people. And then they'll complain about feeling taken advantage of later, of course. Or they'll give a big donation to get big praise or throw a big party so they can be the host who is validated. But what about receiving it? What about receiving that generosity? It's not as straightforward. Now, generosity may not necessarily fall under narcissistic supply. In many cases, if you're generous to them, they may actually get prickly and difficult about it. And there's a few reasons for that. First, there's a suspiciousness and a sensitivity to narcissistic people. You'd be surprised at how often they'd perceive your generosity as being a dig, like you're saying they can't afford something or that they need your help, which inflames their insecurity. And as a result, you may find that you are just trying to be nice with no agenda. And they may clap back with, "I don't need this. I'm perfectly capable of paying the bill." It was never your intention to communicate that. You were just trying to do a nice thing. Second, they may just be suspicious. Again, for narcissistic people, generosity is transactional. So when they pick up that big check for that large group of people, or they throw the big party, or they get the big gift, it's often setting them up for a long game of quid pro quo. They will forever remind you of the time they picked up the check for the 20 people or paid for your family member's medical bill when you didn't ask them to or threw a party for you. And they will use that as a bargaining and a punishing chip for a very long time, for so long in fact, and in so many different situations that you will realize that psychologically that was one hell of a very expensive dinner. But because their generosity is so conditional and so transactional, they often anticipate that another person's generosity is coming from the same place. So your generosity may very well be met with a suspicious, "What do I have to do in return? What do you expect?" Or even a sort of sus, "Well, why are you doing this? What do you want from me?" The suspiciousness may translate into them being stubbornly unwilling to accept it. And it can become an uncomfortable dynamic because your desire to give them something without strings may be genuine. And it almost makes you sort of suspicious of yourself, like, did I have an agenda? Now, the third thing is, if you're generous with them, they may humiliate you. If the thing you give them may be something that they don't want or like, their impulsivity and lack of regard for anyone but themselves may mean that they will take the stance of, "Really?" They may not stop to think that maybe you couldn't afford to give them something nicer, or maybe you handmade them something that actually took a lot of time, or you may offer to pay the bill in a less expensive restaurant. And you may be cynically met with things like, "Oh, well, sure. How nice of you. You pick up the check when we're at this little diner. I should have ordered more." Or they might say, "Sure, okay, this is not exactly my style, but okay." Or they'll say, "Great, grocery store flowers, how pretty." Or the lack of empathy can mean that they simply lack all graciousness, especially if they don't feel like you are someone whose supply matters to them enough, or they don't perceive you as someone who will advance them socially or bring status to them. In some cases, they may remind you that maybe you can't afford the generosity, and in front of others, they may say something like, "Oh, okay, no, you don't have to do this. I know you can't afford this. Everyone here knows you're struggling." It doesn't feel good, and all you were trying to do is be nice. A fourth thing they may do is they may literally turn it into a quid pro quo. They hate the idea that they may owe you something. So if you do show them generosity, the next time they may be very careful to say, "Oh no, I'm getting the check. I don't want to have to owe you anything. No way." And it won't be in a balanced, equitable way. It will be a, "Oh no, you aren't paying for this. You're not getting one over on me." Fifth, you might be met simply with an ungracious, a sort of, "Oh, great, thanks, a gift. Oh, now I have to do a whole big thank you and appreciate you and all of that." They may be sarcastic or passive-aggressive about it, but will not receive the gift with simple joy or warmth, but more of an, "Oh, ick, okay, oh, well, now we need to be nice, need to appreciate." And for some narcissistic folks, especially malignant and vulnerable narcissistic folks, that is not something they are able to do very well. At least the grandiose folks can put on a show and say, "Oh, thank you." Not all narcissists. Six could be that they'll be critical. They may criticize a gift or your gesture. And this may not be as much of a humiliation play because it may not necessarily be in front of others, but may be a, "Really? Why do you spend money on this kind of crap?" Or, I don't like all that country lacy bunny nonsense stuff you quilt." Or, "What the hell? I have to watch my blood sugar and you bring me this damned lemon cake?" Or, "If you'd just save your money instead of wasting it on taking me out for breakfast, maybe you'd be doing better instead of still struggling financially." Now, this kind of criticism in the wake of generosity towards a narcissist is often a play we see in self-righteous narcissistic folks who are notoriously miserly and very critical of the spending habits of other people. So yeah, narcissistic people can be quite generous in a performative way, and that can often confuse other people who think, "Well, they don't seem that bad, they actually seem generous." Or in the case of self-righteous narcissistic folks, who are the least generous people you could ever experience, it can be extreme, right? But when the narcissist is on the receiving end of your genuine generosity, it may result in a very uncomfortable, invalidating, and frankly gross experience. In these cases, my guidance is you be you. If showing up with a plate of cookies or a host gift or just picking up the check is who you are, then don't let them take that away from you. Just don't expect anything that resembles a genuine and normal thank you. Their lack of empathy, lack of self-awareness, and lack of consideration for others means that they don't even know how to receive a gift or a gesture with a humble gratitude. And also remember this, the entitlement of narcissistic people is such that they do believe they're special. So when you do show up with something for them, they actually feel like, yeah, that you should be kissing the ring, like you should be bringing a gift. And those self-righteous narcissists will be the first to point out, like, "Boy, came to Thanksgiving but didn't bring something." They're very big on that. So you couldn't win at this if you wanted to. Narcissists are going to hate. That's what they do. So don't let it take away your inner capacity and drive to be generous and to give of yourself. Again, all narcissistic relationships are all about realistic expectations. You be you, but don't ever expect that the reaction you're going to get back is healthy, kind, or normal. Thanks again.